Yo, what's good, y'all? Welcome back to Afrowanders. The theme of this weekly What's Good is 2 hearts is better than 1. So in this weekly What's Good, I'm actually talking about my recent travels back to the States for the holidays. As you may know, a year and a half ago, I moved to the Netherlands and I went back home for the holidays, the 2019-2020 holidays for Christmas and New Year's, so about over a year ago. And then for the whole of 2020, I was in the Netherlands. And you know, with COVID and everything, I couldn't travel back to the States, or I just couldn't do it for fun. And so then I went back this past Christmas, and that year in between was the longest I'd ever been away from home. And man, I miss my fam, I miss my peeps so much, all my friends. It was pretty insane. It was the first time I'd really gotten homesick, and it would just happen in waves during the 2020 year. So it was really special when I got that chance to go back home finally for Christmas. And honestly, I didn't miss anything about the States other than my people, you know what I mean? Like, I didn't miss anything in particular. So that's pretty telling in itself. So when you leave home for a long time and you come back to visit, you're gonna notice one or two things. Either things have changed a lot since you left, or you have changed a lot since you left. Like I said, it might be both things that you realize. It was the latter for me. I realized that I changed. I can see how I've changed since I left, and which are things that I couldn't tell just from daily life here in the Netherlands. For instance, for myself, I realized conversationally that I'm much more direct and just honest about things whenever I'm talking. And you know, it doesn't have to necessarily be a bad thing or a good thing, but even in circles where traditionally I just never did that. And I started to realize that when I was talking to certain people, and then I'd say something, I'd be like, I don't think I've ever said anything like that to that person, even though, you know, that might be a good friend of mine or somebody I'm really close to. You know, by nature, I'm pretty non-confrontational. You know, I like for people to be happy. I like for them, you know, to like me and just to agree with things. And I've realized recently that for people to like you or whatever, they don't have to agree with you. You can be straight up, you can be direct, and I know a lot of people are just straight up regardless, so you're probably watching this like, yeah, obviously. But for me, I think it took me being out here in a more direct environment, a direct culture, the way people speak, and I've seen that shift in myself, and I feel like, I started to realize, okay, even if I'm honest with somebody, I just got rid of that fear of what could happen. If I'm honest with somebody and then they don't like me or whatever afterwards, that's cool. It's like a filter. It's like, okay, cool. That person wasn't meant to be there anyway, or never really liked me, so it's all good. It's weird, like not having a filter filters out a lot of bullshit. Kind of ironic. But of course, I still do have a filter. I'm just noticing a slight shift when I went back home. Another thing that you realize when you visit home after a long time, you realize who means the most to you, who matters the most, because you really prioritize that little amount of time you have to seeing the people that you know you need to see. That you feel it in your heart. I gotta see this person, And it's just things you don't think about it when you're staying at home, and you can take things for granted when it's always around you. But when you leave and come back, you're like, okay, yeah, especially if it's for a limited amount of time, you gotta do it, you gotta make the most of it, and you gotta see the people that you really wanna see. And I feel like, I saw the people that I really had to see, you know what I mean? And there were people that I wanted to see that I didn't get a chance to see. And there were people that I did see that I would have liked to spend more time with. So, in the end, time is limited, you gotta do the most with what you got. And I went pretty hard. Like, I was trying to see everybody. I didn't spend any time alone. Like, even when I was home, I was like, I'd rather just be chilling downstairs with my parents. I'd rather just be chilling with them doing nothing rather than being alone. There were times where I did have to spend some time alone, but going from living out here in the Netherlands by myself, I got really used to having a lot of solo time, a lot of time to myself to recharge and just do the things that I like to do and make me feel good. And I didn't have much of that back there. It was mostly self-inflicted, but that's the way it was. And I was drained, I was exhausted by the end of it for sure, but I don't regret it because, you know, I lost energy, but energy comes back. You regenerate every day. But when you lose time, you don't get that back. So I'm happy the way things turned out. And also, when you go from having a daily routine of your own to going back home to visit, that's probably the thing that you're gonna miss the most. At least for myself, that's what I miss, especially after a month of being out of it. You know, because you build your routine around the things that you like to do, the things that you enjoy, the things that make you feel good, and all that goes out of the window, at least for myself. All that went out the window when I went back home. And you know, there are things like, all the things that I like to do, like reading, doing meditation, doing some yoga, going to the gym, playing a ukulele, learning some Dutch, and you know, of course you're gonna have a specific diet, and I mean whatever you're eating in general, that kind of changes too when you go back. And of course it doesn't have to, but that's what happens for me. And it didn't have to. If I had some discipline, then I could have kept it going. For instance, my parents, they'd set up a little gym area in my house in the garage. And there's plenty of space to do some workouts, to lift a little bit, meditate, yoga, whatever I want to do. There's plenty of room in the house for me to do it, and I had the time. But at least for me, just that change in environment and just that constant need to see people and make the most out of the time, it made it hard for me to stick to certain things that I would do in my spare time, which is really for self-care. And I mean, I should still prioritize that, but not having the discipline and then having that urgency of wanting to get out, it really just, I mean, it threw everything out the window for me. But that's just me. Now, honestly, the key to getting over that hump for me was just accepting it. Just have some compassion for myself, stop beating myself up over this, because I'm only gonna be home for a month, you know, or however long you're gonna be home, and you know, there's no need to make yourself feel guilty and beat yourself up over doing the things that you want to do instead of you should be doing, especially if it's just you're just home for a little bit amount of time. And once I accepted it as a temporary fact of life, then I could actually enjoy the things that I was choosing to do, that I was making a priority while I'm home, free of guilt, which is amazing. So, you know, it's a mindset thing. Obviously, the right answer is to manage your time better, have some more self-discipline, maybe wake up a bit earlier, and still do all the things that you need to do and the things that you want to do. But I ain't got time for that. Alright, so I had an amazing time back in the States. Spent hella time with my family and friends. And in the end, we also put in a lot of work. Like me and my squad, we put together a couple of black-owned business interviews that are going to be on the channel if they're not already. Subscribe and you'll know. And in the end, you know, fast forward to my time leaving in January, and you know, tear, sob, and I get on this plane, and I'm just realizing the feeling that I have right now going to the Netherlands of just sheer excitement, pure bliss. It's the same exact feeling I had going from the Netherlands back to the States. I'm just super excited to see all my people just get back to this life, and at that moment is where I realized how truly blessed and fortunate I am to feel like I have two homes, you know what I mean? Because in the end, home is where the heart is. And I don't feel like my heart is torn between the two places. I don't feel like half of my heart is in the States and half of my heart's in the Netherlands. I feel like I have two fully functioning, loving hearts. One is in the States and one is in the Netherlands. And my love for one doesn't affect my love for the other. And it's just a beautiful thing, and I'm really happy to have found a place like this in the Netherlands. And honestly, I'm trying to drop hearts all over the world, but for now, 2 hearts is better than 1. Alright, so I appreciate y'all watching. Leave a comment below about anything you think about the video. Share it, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Hit that thumbs up. In the next What's Good, I'll talk more about my return to the Netherlands and what that readjustment process was like. And just more of my daily life type of thing. So stay tuned, y'all. Until then, I'm gonna see y'all in the next one. All right, y'all. Peace.